Now let us discuss the capital and revenue expenditures and using accrual and cash basis of accounting. Again, this is for itemized deduction. This does not apply to optional standard deduction. So let us now start. So let us differentiate revenue expenditures from capital expenditures. So capital expenditures, these are expenses that are related to fixed asset. So the acquisition of fixed asset. So it could be a depreciable fixed asset or a non-depreciable fixed asset such as land. And what differs capital expenditure from revenue expenditure is that capital expenditure, when paid, is not outright recorded as an expense. And why is that? Because the fixed asset can be used for more than 1 year. So which means that the taxpayer can obtain the benefit from the usage of such fixed asset for more than one period. However, for the revenue expenditures, these are immediately expensed because the benefit that is given by these expenses to the taxpayer are only for a shorter period of time for less than 1 year. So that is why the tax treatment is for a revenue expenditure is it is deductible based on the accounting method that is used by the taxpayer, whether it is a cash basis or accrual basis. But for a capital expenditure, regardless whether the taxpayer is using the accrual or cash basis of accounting, capital expenditures are not deductible outright. Instead, it should be capitalized and can be deductible through depreciation. So that is the difference revenue expenditure and capital expenditure for tax purposes. And of course, there are some issues on revenue expenditures and capital expenditures when it comes to expenses that are related to fixed asset. So specifically repair. So the repair can be considered as a revenue expenditure or a capital expenditure. So when is it considered as revenue expenditure? A repair is considered revenue expenditure if it is a minor repair. So it is considered as minor if such repair will not increase the fair value or useful life of the fixed asset being repaired. So which means this repair will not give additional benefit to the taxpayer. However, for a repair that is to be capitalized, it is considered as major repair if it will increase the useful life of such fixed asset or the fair value of the fixed asset. So which means that a major repair will give additional benefit to the taxpayer. Now let us discuss the tax treatment of certain expenses based on the accounting basis used by the taxpayer, whether accrual or cash basis. However, this only applies to revenue expenditures because capital expenditures are always deductible through depreciation. So let us proceed first to payments of services. So services are either prepayments or accrual of expense. Regardless whether the taxpayer is using accrual or cash basis of accounting, as long as the prepayment is refundable, which means the payment can be returned to the taxpayer, it means that it is not considered as an expense for tax purposes. So regardless whether accrual or cash basis, it is always non-deductible. Again, because it can be returned to the taxpayer. However, for the non-refundable prepayments, this is only deductible for tax purposes if it is incurred under accrual basis and also under cash basis. So regardless whether the accounting method is accrual or cash basis, non-refundable prepayments are only deductible from gross income if it is incurred. However, for accrual of expense, there are differences in the treatment of services. So under accrual, these expenses are deductible only when incurred, if it is incurred. However, under cash basis, accrual of expense are not allowed. Again, because under cash basis, expenses are based on cash payment. So that is why we need to wait until payment date before these expenses can be deducted from gross income. However, if the expenses is related to the consumption of goods and supplies, so regardless of the accounting method used, whether accrual or cash basis, the goods and supplies are deductible only when incurred. And when we say incurred, it means it is consumed or used for the business. And of course, goods and supplies can be classified into two, whether it is a product cost or a period cost. Again, when we say product cost, these are costs that is related to the manufacture or acquisition of the product being sold by the taxpayer. However, period costs are other operating expenses that are not related to the acquisition of the product, but are supporting costs in order to survive the business. So for product costs, so we are using the inventory method. So it is considered as incurred when the inventory is sold or the services is rendered. And for period cost, it is considered as incurred when it is used in the business. So an example of this would be supplies. So on supplies, expense can be deductible only when the supplies are actually used. Problem. So we can apply the rules on capital and revenue expenditures and the use of cash basis and accrual basis of accounting. So first, let us look for capital expenditures. So based on the problem, we have a purchase of equipment that has a useful life of 5 years. So the acquisition cost is 500,000 pesos and an installation cost for 10,000 pesos. So this is a capital expenditure, so which means regardless whether the cash basis or accrual basis of accounting is used by the taxpayer, this will be deducted as part of the itemized deductions through depreciation. So let us compute for the depreciation related to this equipment. So again, our acquisition cost will consist of the 500,000 purchase price, then the installation cost of 10,000 pesos because this is a direct cost to the acquisition of equipment. So the total is 510,000 pesos. So this will be the basis of our depreciation expense. And since we have no salvage value, so we will divide this by the useful life, which is 5 years. So our annual depreciation is 102,000 pesos or 510,000 divided by 5 years. Of course, we are using the simplest method of depreciation, which is straight line method. So now we have computed the depreciation. So this will be the depreciation expense regardless of the method used by the taxpayer. So cash basis or accrual basis. So now let us proceed to revenue expenditures. Again, for revenue expenditures, the deductibility depends on the accounting method used by the taxpayer. So the treatment is different under cash basis and accrual basis. So let's start with the rental payments. So we have three rental payments, 20,000, 120,000, and 40,000 pesos. And these are payments made in 2020, which is the current taxable year. So first, the 20,000, which is the rent incurred in 2019. Let us do both for cash and accrual basis. So what is the treatment for the rent incurred in 2019 but paid in 2020? So since this is paid in 2020 and this is incurred in 2019, so this is deductible for tax purposes under cash basis. However, under accrual basis, this is non-deductible. And why is this non-deductible? Because this was incurred in 2019 and it should be deductible in 2019. So under accrual basis, upon payment, it will no longer allowed to be a deductible expense. So again, under accrual, it was deductible in 2019. So next is the rental payments in 2020 for rent incurred in 2020. So there is no problem with this payment because this is both paid and incurred in 2020. So under both cash and accrual method, this is deductible. Then for 40,000 pesos, which is to be incurred in 2021, which means this is a prepayment. So for both cash and accrual, they are similar in treatment. So it will be deductible only when incurred. So that is why for the 40,000 pesos, both under cash basis and accrual basis, this is non-deductible. Again, be reminded that between accrual and cash basis, the treatment for expenses of services is only on accrual of expense because under accrual it is only deductible when incurred, but for cash basis it is only when paid. However, for prepayments, regardless whether accrual or cash basis, the treatment are the same. So let's now proceed to the lease bonus. So the lease bonus is a prepayment. So according to the problem, 20% is incurred in this year, and the 80,000 is paid in 2019. So again, this is a prepayment, and lease bonus is a non-refundable payment. So which means that the amount to be deductible for 2020 is only the amount incurred. And out of this 80,000 pesos lease bonus, 20% is incurred in 2020, and that is applicable to both cash basis and accrual basis. So that is 16,000 pesos, which is 80,000 multiplied by 20%. Then for security deposit, so security deposit are prepayments. However, this is refundable. So again, what is a security deposit? This is a payment made by the lessee or the tenant to the lessor. So what is the purpose of security deposit? So this provides the lessor a security so that in case the lease asset or lease property suffers damages that is a result of the lessee's action, the security deposit will be used to repair or renovate those damages suffered from the lessee. So that is the purpose of security deposit. However, in case there is no damages, the security deposit shall be returned to the lessee. So this is a refundable deposit. So that is why the 25,000 is non-deductible for both cash basis and accrual basis. However, for the 50,000 advertising expense, this is incurred in 2020, the current taxable year. However, this is paid in 2021, so which means this is an accrual of expense, and advertising is services. So the deductibility is different under cash and accrual basis. So how is the 50,000 treated under cash basis? So under cash basis, this is not deductible. Again, accrual of expense is not applicable under cash basis. It is only applicable for accrual basis of accounting. That is why the 50,000 is allowed as a deduction under accrual. Then for purchases of supplies, we have 30,000 pesos. So since this is not an acquisition of services, instead this is a goods or supplies, so this will be deductible only when used or consumed. So let us compute for the amount consumed for the supplies. So that will start with the beginning supplies, which is 12,000. Then we purchased additional supplies for 30,000 pesos, and our ending balance of supplies is 15,000 pesos. So the 15,000 pesos is the remaining supplies at the end of the year. So which means out of 42,000 available supplies that can be used, only 15,000 remained at the end of the year, and that is 27,000 pesos. So that is the amount of supplies consumed in 2020, and that is deductible for both cash basis and accrual basis. Then now let's proceed to the depreciation, because depreciation is an item of deduction. And regardless whether cash basis or accrual basis, we are allowed to deduct depreciation for the amount of 102,000 pesos. So assuming the purchase was made on January 1, 2020. So the depreciation expense is 102,000 for both cash basis and accrual basis of accounting. So now let us compute for the total itemized deductions. So if the taxpayer uses cash method, so the total itemized deductions that will be deducted from the gross income is 285,000, while under accrual method, the amount of deductions is 315,000 pesos. So this is our discussion on the differences between capital and revenue expenditures and the use of cash basis and accrual basis of accounting.